Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how I drew these peaches on a branch with colored pencils. I drew these peaches on Legion paper Rising Museum Mountboard 2-ply white, and I used a combination of colored pencils including Prismacolor, Polychromos, Caran d'Ache Luminance, Derwent Lightfast, Derwent Drawing, and Holbein pencils. And I like to use a combination of pencils because I can take advantage of the different characteristics in all of these different brands, as well as such a super wide range of color choices. But you could definitely draw something very similar to this just using one or two brands of pencils. The process I used to draw these leaves is a process that I have used several times in other drawings, and basically what I did was I used a Polychromos ivory pencil. I got that nice and sharp, and then I indented the paper anywhere that I wanted these veins or tiny little details to show up. Then I came through and added my shadow colors, my midtone colors, and highlights. Then I blended that all with solvent. Then I came through with my electric eraser and created some texture, just dotted that electric eraser all over the leaf, and especially in the areas where I wanted the brighter highlights or wanted more detail. Then I came through and darkened the shadows where needed and adjusted the mid-tone colors. Here you can see me doing that same process again on the second leaf, using that ivory Polychromos. Anywhere I want the veins or the little details, pressing really hard with that pencil. And when I come over with my next layer of pencil with the greens, it won't stick where I indented the paper. So it's a really easy way to make all of that detail pop out. Starting in with the shadow areas and then adding any of the patterning that I can see on the leaf using just different colors. Used several different colors from the Derwent Lightfast. I used ivy and foliage. I was using kelp green and moss green from Prismacolor. In Polychromos, I was using May green, earth green yellowish, and olive green yellowish. And then I was also using a couple of the Holbein pencils as well. Here I'm blending with solvent. I used Utrecht Nude Odorless Paint Thinner. And I was using a Dynasty No. 6 flat brush to blend. I've done several videos here on YouTube that you can check out where I talk in more detail about how I use solvent to blend my colored pencils. So if that's a technique you're interested in learning, you can check those out. And always, if you want even more information, you can check out my Patreon page because I have all kinds of tutorials over there that go into even more detail about the different techniques that I use in my drawings. There's actually a 4-part video for this drawing in particular where I spend more time talking about exactly what I'm doing. And if you just want to see what pencils or supplies I used in the drawing, you can check out my affiliate links that are in the description. I get most of my supplies from Blick.com, but there are a few things that I get from Amazon, so those will all be listed below. And you can see the links to those and check out the colors I was using without buying the pencils. So if you just want to see all of the supplies I used, you can look there. Finishing up some of the leaves here before I get started on the peaches. And now you can see me starting to work on this first peach. I did a full tutorial on Patreon for just this peach alone. And again, I'm just starting off by blocking things in, trying to start to establish where the shadows go, again, where the patterning goes. It was important to make sure I maintain the shape of the peach. I want this to look 3D, and I did that by the correct placement of the highlights and shadows, along with paying attention to the patterning and the contour lines on here as well. But lots of different colors in here, reds and yellows, peaches and pinks. Mix them all together. And blending that with solvent. And then coming back around, I wanted to make sure I had a nice highlight around the edge of the peach, so I was burnishing with my Prismacolor white pencil. And I made sure I used the softest colors on that side. I used lots of the Cherry Blossom from Holbein, and then some other peaches and pinks from my different brands. Saw me use the electric eraser in here as well, just to bring out some highlights. And then I'm going to work on the second and third peaches. And following a similar process, again, just establishing where everything goes, where the patterns are the strongest, and also figuring out where I want the indentations to be. I talked in this video about how it's important to me to focus on the values and not try to make sure my colors are exactly matching my reference image. I always work from a reference image, so I'm looking back and forth between that reference and my drawing as I'm working. And I'm always trying to strike a balance between copying that reference image or trying to get my drawing as close as I can, and then also making sure that in the end it's my drawing and how good the drawing looks that's important. So really, again, balance, that's a balance that I have to go through. Sometimes something doesn't look exactly like the reference image on my drawing, but it actually looks better than the reference image. It's my Permanent Carmine from Polychromos. That's a color that I used a lot in this drawing. In the darkest shadows, I was using a Prismacolor Black Raspberry. It's a super handy pencil to use in the shadows. Prismacolor has Black Cherry, Black Raspberry, and Black Grape. And again, all three of those are really great shadow colors. They're just slightly different hues. I like the Black Raspberry when I'm using reds or warm reds especially. I've also got a Perylene Brown from Luminance you saw me use in some of the shadows. And I'm going to darken that shadow even further, and it can be scary to go dark with your shadows or to feel like, oh no, I'm going to ruin something, or this is too dark. And the truth is, if you don't have some dark shadows, you're not going to have enough contrast in the drawing. So don't be afraid to get your shadows nice and dark where needed. And if you ever do get those shadows too dark where you think, okay, I went too far with this and I need to tone it down, you can always come in with an electric eraser or any kind of eraser and pull up some of that dark color and then go over that with, you know, whatever base color you're going for. So in this case, I could go back over with the reds. So it's definitely possible to tone that down if you have gotten it too dark. And now working on the final peach, and this is going to be the darkest one of all. So you're not going to see me use as many of those bright colors in here. Establishing the shadows right away with that black raspberry. Got some peach beige, more of that Parylene brown. I'm going over the black raspberry with a Prismacolor red. That was a 925 from Prismacolor, and a dark red from Polychromos. And then I'm also getting some pinks, some carmine red, and even some vermilion in there in some of those brighter areas. And then once again blending out with solvent. Adding texture and detail with my electric eraser. And now I'm working on the branch, and I used a lot of the same techniques on the branch that I did on the leaves. I outlined everything, and then I'm coming through with my ivory polychromos and my Prismacolor white to make the indentations that will create the detail on this branch, and then coming over with my different browns. I used natural brown from Derwent Lightfast and chocolate brown from Derwent Drawing, and also Venetian red from Derwent Drawing. Those were the main 3 brown pencils that I used here, and then I also added some touches of red. It brought in some of the reds that I used in the peaches, something I like to do with anytime I draw fruit on a branch. And using the electric eraser, coming through and touching up the details one more time. This is another part of the drawing that I did a full tutorial for on Patreon, so again, check that out if you're interested in learning how to draw this. And then finally I'm going to start working on the remaining leaves, sort of just a cluster of leaves up in here. And the important thing for this section is to make sure that each of these leaves stands out. I don't want it just to be a clump of green. I need to make sure that there's some definition on these leaves. So I used some different colors, and I also used the indentation technique to make sure that these stayed separate. And then I also used different values in this final section so that some of the leaves look like they're behind the others. Working on the final bits right here up at the top. And here once again is my final drawing. If you have any questions about how I drew this, be sure to let me know in the comments, and otherwise I will see you in the next video. Bye everybody.